Tales of the Valiant is Global Press's own version of the 5th edition rule system. In this TOV Tuesday with the GM Toolbox, we're going to do the first in a series of head-to-head comparisons between TOV and D&D. We will look at both the 2014 and 2024 versions in D&D and see how they compare to their TOV counterpart. This week, we're going to look at the fighter and compare abilities at each level and even look how to convert a D&D fighter subclass to be used in Tales of the Valiant. So let's get into it. Hello everybody, I'm Joe and this is the GM Toolbox, your go-to place to get all the tools you need to enhance your TTRPG games. Before we get started today, if you enjoy the content I'm bringing you and you want to see more, please help support the channel by taking a moment to subscribe and hit the like button. It really does help me to grow the channel and bring you more great content. Well, welcome to another TOV Tuesday with the GM Toolbox. Today, let's break down the TOV fighter and see how it stacks up with the D&D versions. Then let's take a fighter subclass from a 5e book and convert it to TOV. It's a lot easier than you may think. Alright, let's start by looking at the fighter progression table from both 2014 and 2024 D&D and the one from TOV. First, we can see in the 2024 D&D that the subclass features fall at the same level as in the 2014 versions. You will notice, however, that in TOV, that instead of a feature at level 10, we have one at 11, and we don't have one at 18 at all. We will address this and how to handle taking a 5e subclass and converting it to work in TOV later on, but let's look at some of the abilities between the systems and see how they're different. Today, I want to build a fighter that uses dual wielding, so we will focus on that, but you'll see how you'll be able to see how this would work for a sword and board style, as well as a two-handed weapon style, or even a duelist. Alright, at level 1, the 2014 Player Handbook gives you a fighting style and second wind. In the 2024 PHB, it gives you the same plus weapon mastery, and TOV gives you Last Stand, which is their version of second wind, and martial actions. Let's start with the 2024 Player's Handbook, and I'll assume you're already familiar with the 2014 version. Weapon Mastery allows you to use a weapon to do something besides just attacking with it. You can have mastery with a certain number of weapons depending on your class, and that may improve over time as you level up. You can see at level 1, a fighter can have 3 weapons that they can do this with. You can swap out which weapon you can do this with during a rest. Our fighter today is going to dual wield a short sword and a scimitar in their offhand. So for those masteries, the short sword gets the Vex option, which this is kind of cool for dual wielding because if you hit a creature with a short sword and deal damage to it, you'll have advantage on the next attack before the end of your turn. So that offhand attack with your other sword will have advantage. Then the scimitar has the Nick mastery. This lets you make the extra attack that you get from having 2 light weapons as part of the action you use to attack with your short sword, so you don't have to burn that bonus action. Now you can use the bonus action for something else like second wind or later on an action surge, so this is pretty cool. I'd say the 2024 version is an improvement overall and it's pretty cool. Now let's look at TOV. We get the Last Stand, so instead of using a bonus action and rolling 1d10 plus your fighter level to heal, you can use a reaction when you drop below 50% health and roll hit dice up to a number equal to your proficiency bonus, and then add your con, and that will be how much you can heal for. This is a feature that scales really well. Second Wind will heal you for a max of 30 at level 20, but Last Stand will give you a max of 60 plus your con, which is probably between 3 and 5 depending on your build. However, it's worth noting that Second Wind gets more uses over time, where Last Stand has no limit other than the amount of hit dice you have available. Your use of Second Wind can also be used by other tactical abilities as you level up, and we'll see those later on. So next in TOV, we're going to look at these martial actions, which are going to replace fighting style along with some talents. They sort of roll together, as you'll see. Talents are TOV's feats, but they are buffed up because they have combined some feats together, as well as the benefits from some of the fighting styles, all kind of rolled into one. You can see here, there are multiple martial actions you can choose from, just like you would choose a fighting style in D&D. For this character, we will go with Quick Strike, which lets us make 2 attacks with our bonus action instead of 1, for a total of 3 attacks. Don't forget that the 2024 Player's Handbook fighter lets us only make 2 attacks, but it frees up the bonus action for something else. Is the TOV version better? Maybe. We certainly can put out more damage with it if we want, but TOV also gives us weapon options. These are actually more like the weapon mastery of the 2024 Player's Handbook. In TOV, short swords have the disarm option, and the scimitar has the hamstring option. Weapon options, however, are not passive like the 2024 Player's Handbook masteries are. They're bonus actions, so we choose to do these instead of taking a standard damaging attack. Disarm will have the target make a strength or dex save on hit or drop their weapon, at which point you could use a free action to maybe kick it away or scoop it up yourself to use against the target. Hamstring will reduce the target's movement by 10 feet for 1 minute. The affected creature can recover from this with a successful medicine check against your weapon's DC, which is 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength or dex bonus, or magical healing will do it as well. Just keep in mind that these weapon options still require a successful attack roll. So we have some more options on what we want to do in TOV. We have the potential for more damage as well as some other cool stuff we can do depending on our weapon. But we get choices, which is kind of fun. Okay, at level 2, we get Accent Surge across all 3 systems. But the 2024 Player's Handbook also gives Tactical Mind, which lets you burn Second Wind to add a d10 to an ability check. They are not clear on if this still uses a bonus action or not, but if it fails to work, you don't burn the second wind use at all, so that's kind of nice. So it's a pretty cool feature overall. All right, level 3. So this is the fun one, right? Because this is where we get our subclass, and we get this across the board for all 3 systems. Again, we will talk about converting a 5e subclass later on. TOV does have a couple of subclasses in their player's guide, and more coming out in future books. But any 5e subclass can be converted very easily. All right, level 4, we get an ability score improvement, and TOV just calls this improvement. Now, this is where you can add 2 to 1 ability score or 1 to 2 ability scores, or take a feat in D&D or a talent in TOV. However, TOV also lets you add 1 to any ability score that you want when you take a talent. Now, D&D's general feats in 2024 will give you an ability score increase as well, of 1, but it's limited to certain ability scores. For instance, in this build, we want Dual Wielder, so we can increase Strength or Dex by 1, but in TOV, you can increase any score you want. It'll still likely be Strength or Dex, but the point is the option for you to take whatever you want is there. Now let's take a look at Dual Wielder, because things have changed a little. The Dual Wielder feat changed a lot actually from the 2014 version. In 2014, it granted +1 to AC while wielding 2 weapons. You could dual wield one-handed weapons that did not have the light property, and you can draw and stow 2 one-handed weapons at a time. It's a pretty cool feature. I like that one. Now in 2024, you now get a bonus to strength or dex, as I mentioned above. Then they have changed it from being able to dual wield weapons without the light property to only having one of them not have the light property. So it now states, when you take the attack action on your turn, attack with a weapon that has the light property. You can make 1 extra attack as a bonus action later on the same turn with a different weapon, which must be a melee weapon that lacks the 2-handed property. You don't add your modifier to the extra attack's damage unless that modifier is negative. I think the wording on this feat could have been made more clear, but basically I can now attack with a short sword or a scimitar, a light weapon in one hand, and then let's say a long sword or a battle axe, any non-2-handed weapon with my other hand. My fighting style will still allow the modifier ability to be added, but unless it's a versatile weapon, I'll have to do strength, not dex. So this does feel somewhat limiting. Now, Tales of the Valiant will give us the 2 weapon mastery talent. This is a combo of the 2014 dual wield feat along with the 2 weapon fighting style and a lot more all rolled into one. We can now dual wield non-light weapons, and this works with our quick strike ability as well. Rather than adding our dex or strength to the attacks of our offhand like the 2 weapon fighting style, we can add our proficiency bonus. So now if we are built as a dex fighter but want to dual wield longswords, we don't have to have great strength to use our proficiency bonus, at least at offhand. Now, I'm going to say, just for the sake of keeping things even, we'll go with the scimitar in my main hand and the longsword in my offhand. That way the 2024 fighter gets that freed up bonus action still. We also get the ability to draw and stow 2 weapons instead of 1, just like in D&D. And when we score a crit on a creature or reduce it to 0 hit points with our bonus action attack, we can move up to half our speed without provoking opportunity attacks to make a single melee attack against a creature or object within reach. So here we see TOV outshining both systems in my opinion. Yes, you're going to get extra damage from the fighting style earlier in D&D, but you get better scaling damage in TOV. You just have to wait till level 4. Plus, TOV is giving you 2 attacks instead of 1 with that quick strike at level 1. You may have advantage on the 1 attack in D&D with our short sword scimitar build, but your chances of landing one of your 2 strikes in TOV is the same as landing the 1 strike in D&D. Plus, you have a chance of landing a second. So if you do land both, you will do more damage than 1 strike in D&D. All right, level 5. We get extra attack across the board, though in TOV it's called multi-attack. 2024 Player's Handbook gives us another tactical ability called Tactical Shift. This also requires use of Second Wind, which has now scaled from 2 uses to 3, starting at level 4. This ability lets you move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks. So kind of like what our talent did at the previous level for Tales of the Valiant. So far, we're a little neck and neck. I think TOV is kind of winning out a little bit. But then we get to level 6. So here again, we get our ability score improvement. And keep in mind, TOV lets you improve an ability score, like any ability score you want by 1 when taking a talent, where the 2024 D&D restricts you to the specific ones based on the feat. 2020 or 2014 D&D may or may not let you improve ability score at all. It just depends on which feat you take. All right, at level 7, all 3 systems are just going to get their next subclass feature. But at level 8, again, we're going to get another ability score improvement or feat or talent. Level 9, however, the 2014 Player's Handbook gets an ability called Indomitable, which lets you re-roll a failed save once per long rest. You get more uses at 13 and again at 17. The 2024 version lets you do the same, but it lets you add a bonus equal to your fighter level, which helps you have a chance to succeed. And it also gets those additional uses at 13 and 17. Now, this is where TOV is going to deviate a little, because TOV gives you another extra attack. So now you get up to 3 attacks per turn at level 9. You're not going to see this in D&D until level 11. Personally, I like this better. The reason being is because when we get into level 10, things really start to change for the better in TOV. So let's look at level 10. So D&D gets a subclass feature here. TOV gets what's called a heroic boon. Heroic boons are a feature in TOV that all classes get at level 10. They provide a choice between some really cool options. For a fighter, we get to choose between 2 different abilities. First is Defiant, which is just a better version of Indomitable. It's basically a legendary resistance. When you fail a save, you can choose to succeed instead. You get 1 use now, but 2 at 13 and 3 at 17, just like Indomitable. But now we don't have to roll. We are not taking the chance at no reward. We just succeed. And, well, that's just better, right? The other option is an ability called Unstoppable. This feature lets you end a condition at the start of your turn. You can end either blinded, charmed, frightened, incapacitated, paralyzed, or stunned. You can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. So honestly, for me, this is a tough choice. Both of these are awesome. Choose whichever one you like best because they're pretty cool. All right, on to level 11. Now, 3 levels later, D&D catches up to TOV with the second extra attack, giving us 3 attacks per turn. But TOV now gives us the next subclass feature. Like I mentioned, we're going to convert a 5e subclass to TOV later on, but for a quick reference, the feature you would have gotten at 10, you'll now get at 11. Considering the extra attack and the heroic boon, I think it's worth waiting 1 level. All right, so at level 12, we're going to get our ability score improvement again across the board. And then at level 13, D&D gets the second use of Indomitable, and if you chose the Defiant for your heroic boon in TOV, you would get the second use of that here as well. The 2024 D&D version also gives us Studied Attack. Now this is a cool one, I like this one. If you miss an attack, your next attack against the opponent before the end of your turn is with advantage. Of course, if you miss with your last attack, it doesn't help you much. Now TOV is also giving us a second use of Action Surge. You won't see this in D&D until 17th level. I love seeing this much earlier because we often don't make it to 17th level, and Action Surge is a fun ability for fighters, so let's just give it to them now. All right, level 14 is another ability score improvement across the board, but level 15 subclass features go around for all 3. There is a caveat here, however, for TOV, but we'll kind of circle back to that later. Level 16, another ability score improvement across the board, and then we get to level 17. So now 4 levels later, D&D will give you that second Action Surge as well as that third use of Indomitable. TOV is giving you your third use of Defiant if you took it, but you also are getting your third extra attack here for a total of 4 attacks per action. D&D won't see that until level 20. So again, we're seeing core fighter abilities sooner, which I really, really love. All right, so now level 18. Here's where things get a bit weird, but stay with me. D&D gives you a fighter subclass feature. TOV does not, and we won't see another subclass feature in the TOV fighter. There are reasons for this, and for one, where you're getting a third action surge at level 18 in Tales of the Valiant, you never get a third use in D&D at all. So right there, we're seeing a lot of power, but have no fear. When we convert that subclass, there's still a way to get that last subclass ability if you want it. Just stay with me a little longer. All right, so let's look at level 19. So the 2014 Player's Handbook and Tales of the Valiant both give us another ability score improvement or a feat talent kind of deal. The 2024 Player's Handbook gives us their version of an epic boon, which is a special type of feat. If you watched my Player's Handbook 2024 review, or any other YouTubers for that matter, you probably have heard how feats are broken up into origin feats, which you get with your background, general feats, which we could take at any of the various ability score improvement levels, fighting styles, which is just a conversion of the fighting style being a class ability to being a specific type of feat. This makes it more organized in the new player's handbook, but nothing has really changed there mechanically. And then there are epic boon feats. These are very powerful feats meant to really pump the characters up. For this character, and for the sake of an apples to apples comparison, we would take the boon of irresistible offense. This lets us increase our strength or dex by 1 up to a max of 30, though I'm not really sure how we get up to 30 since all the other feats only allow us to go up to 20. I guess with magic items, we could in theory get that high, but removing those items would drop us down. We also get to ignore bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing resistance, and when we get a nat 20 for an attack roll, we deal extra damage equal to the ability score we increased with that feat. That's pretty powerful and cool. So if we increased our strength to 22, we deal an extra 22 damage right there. That's awesome. All right, finally, level 20. D&D gets that final extra attack that TOV had back in 18. TOV, however, gives you their version of an epic boon. This is similar to the heroic boon at level 10, and this too is a choice. However, in the TOV player's guide, there's only one choice. Eventually, Kobold Press will have more options for epic boons, which will come out in future books. I do kind of find this cool because we're going to get more class options for both heroic boons and epic boons in later books. Core class options in expansion books. For now, however, the epic boon for the fighter is called Turn the Tide. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature or an object with a weapon attack on your turn, you can cause the attack to deal additional damage of the same damage type as the weapon, equal to your strength or dex score, your choice. This attack's damage ignores resistance and immunity, and it can't be reduced or avoided by any means. So this is similar to the epic boon we took at 19 for the 2024 fighter, but better. It doesn't require a crit. We can use it once every turn. It ignores not just resistance, but also immunity, and it can't be reduced or avoided. They just have to eat that damage. So again, TOV seems to beat the D&D version in power. Of course, in D&D, you get this power one level sooner, and you have other options right now. But again, more epic boons for TOV will come with time. You could even create your own if you wanted. Take the epic boon from the 2024 Player's Handbook and tweaking it a bit, and you can make this into an epic boon for your TOV game. Now, you may be saying that TOV is perhaps too OP, but one thing you have to keep in mind is that TOV monsters and the adventures are scaled for these characters. Though you can play a D&D fighter and a TOV fighter at the same table, the D&D fighter will have a harder time with the monsters in Tales of the Valiant. Kobold Press did a great job with keeping counters and monsters balanced for their game. The real question is, which one sounds more fun to play? Okay, subclass time. Now, of course, Tales of the Valiant has a couple subclasses in their book, but Kobold Press has provided us with a guide to convert D&D subclasses to Tales of the Valiant. And this will work for both the 2024 subclasses as well as the 2014 subclasses, or any third-party book subclasses for that matter. Today, I want to take a look at the Time Blade subclass from Kobold Press's Tomohiro's book, because it's a subclass that I love, and one of my players is actually playing it in our game, which we started as a D&D game, but have kind of converted to Tales of the Valiant. So let's take a look at how this would work. So here is the TOV conversion guide that is a free download from the Kobold Press website. When we look at the fighter subclass section, it says to take the 10th level feature and move it to 11, which we mentioned earlier. This also says to take either the 15th or 18th level feature and grant it at 15. Now, I don't like this option. I want to see the fighter get both. So the other option is to grant the 15th level feature at 15 and then make the 18th level feature a talent they can optionally take at 19. So they would get a +1 ability score improvement and that feature instead of the +1 and a talent. Now, I like this option better personally, but you can always let the player decide. Maybe they would rather take the 18th level ability at 15 and not get the 15th level ability at all, and then take a talent or a full ASI at level 19. It's up to you and your table, right? So, what does this look like for the Time Blade? Well, their level 3 ability, Temporal Strike, stays at their level. Their 7th level ability, Chronologic Echo, stays at 7th level. Their 10th level ability, Improved Temporal Strike, is now granted at 11. Their 15th level ability, Continuity Rift, can still be granted at 15, or we can grant the level 18 ability, Temporal Warrior, at this point. If we choose to grant the Continuity Rift at 15, then at 19, Temporal Warrior becomes an optional talent. That's it. We converted a D&D fighter subclass to TOV. Now keep in mind with other classes that the subclasses may not have the need to drop or convert an ability or a talent. Others may require you to come up with a whole new ability since that subclass gets more abilities in TOV than it does in D&D. We'll cover those in future videos, but that's how it's done for a fighter. So that wraps up our TOV fighter comparison to D&D and how to convert a fighter subclass to Tales of the Valiant. I really like what Cobalt Press has done with the fighter in Tales of the Valiant, and I hope this has shown you how much TOV has actually changed from 5e while keeping the core of the game the same and backwards compatible. I really feel like this fighter will just be more fun to play, and the weapon options and martial actions combined with the talents are just a better design compared to the fighting styles and weapon mastery and feats of D&D. But I'm curious about your thoughts on this. What do you think of the TOV fighter compared to D&D? Let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you for coming on this journey with me, and I'll see you next time.